that says recording in progress, and everybody has to say okay to that. So we did that. And as you have taught me very well, we're going to be present in the moment. Some ideas about what we're going to talk and learn about and how this will unfold. And we'll see where the moment takes us. So, and I want to say to everybody, I think you saw in the email that certainly the story here is not only a medical story, but there was a time at the beginning of January where you were in the hospital. We made a go at a third kind of chemo, and that was pretty rough, and made a decision to stop the chemo. And thankfully, the infection that you were in the hospital with was able to be treated. And as we've gotten farther away from the hospital and farther away from the chemo, it's been amazing to see you stronger. And we want to take in all of the blessings of this period of strength that you have, and use it to continue learning as you have done and continue to do. And we'll do this today, and God willing, we'll do it some more, and it'll be as long as it'll be.
Well, I hope we'll do it some more. I'm certain, I'm planning on doing it some more. What I want to talk about and think about is shaped by a Midrash 3rd century teacher who has become a hero of mine, Rabbi Yehuda Bar Simon. And he speaks in different ways about aging and about the quality of aging, the qualities of aging, and the qualities of aging that are prompted by human beings. In any event, more about that. It's a little bit vague. More about that shortly. But he is he speaks on behalf of aging in a particular way that strikes me as being very important. The theme of aging has always been very important to me. And it's one of those things that, can I have a sip of your coffee? Thank you.
Bechavod.
Did Ariel make it for you?
Yeah, Ariel made it.
I might need to sip on that every so often from time to time.
She makes a good cup of coffee.
She makes a good cup of coffee, my daughter.
You taught her well. This too is Torah.
That's right. That's right. Not everybody in the ancient world, not all of the ancient teachers speak nicely about or approvingly about aging. Aging seems to be a defeat for most people, for many people, but not for Rabbi Simon. More about him in just a second, and towards the Midrash. But first, I just want to preface this by saying that V'shuv Adonai et Zion hayinu kecholmim. When God returned the remnants of Zion, we were like dreamers. And we were like dreamers as we had once been like dreamers before. Which means to me that people are part of other people's dreams, and that people do have dreams that are shared and enter into the dreams of other people. And in fact, there's a whole section of the Talmud which says that, which speaks about dreams. Many of us studied it together. And in it, a perplexed dreamer says, I had a dream last night, and I don't know whether I dreamt about myself or dreamt about somebody else, or whether somebody else dreamt about me. And I need to clarify all of that. It creates a picture of dream solidarity, of dreamy solidarity, where we wander around in each other's dreams. We have a fundamental dreaming language, which is our Torah. And I wonder what that's like. Shall I run into you in your dream? And can we have a conversation and a conspiracy? And can we learn something from each other through the shared dreams? It seems to me that that there are these small little strands of Torah and Talmud that would teach us that we can and that we do. And I took Rabbi Yehuda Bar Simon, took his teaching about aging and wrote an essay about it. And I wrote it once and I wrote it twice. But each time I wrote the essay, I was like a docent in front of the artwork. I kept myself very much in front of the artwork and put on the garb and guise of a professor of midrash, of a professional who was teaching midrash. And
you realize that you didn't have to put on a costume to do that, right?
Well, that's true. Yeah. And that meant I stood primly and precisely in front of the velvet curtain, the velvet ropes, the stanchions. And I told what could be told and told the truth as science and the literary reading of Midrash would say, tell the truth. But then something happened. I, who have always been interested in aging, the process of aging, the nobility of aging, the possibilities of aging, and help people with transitions, a super subspecialty of mine in my rabbinate. I got cancer. Well, that allowed me some leeway that I hadn't had before. I'm not positive that I, would choose it. Could I have some of that coffee? Could you just set it down over here so that I could pick it up? My daughter makes a great cup of coffee. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I was always like a docent, and I was trying to say something that the midrashist, that the Baal HaMidrash would say, and make it historically clean and clear and accurate and connected. And then I was diagnosed with cancer, and all of a sudden, I became a dreamer once again with all of the other dreamers of Israel, and entering into dreams and being entered by dreams. And I started to think that I was not just a docent. I was part of the artwork. I was part of the artwork, and that's a totally different business.
The idea that comes to mind is that there are many people who are visiting a museum here today.
Are there?
Well, I don't know. There are 100 people on Zoom, 100 Zoom boxes, who are coming to both see you, to give you love, and also to become part of your dream, and to sort of bear witness to, okay, this is a person who I love and who's taught me a lot, and who has cancer and is nearing the end of life. And I want to learn from this. I want to be part of this. I want to understand. And I also, you know, you just sort of slid it in there that the Torah is a dream, right? And so by, you know, people will be able to find you in the Torah, right? And sort of enter into that dream with you. So anyways, I interrupted. Go ahead.
As is your want.
As is my want. Only an invitation.
But find me in their dreams, but also find themselves in their dreams, which is something that is just a whole lot more reasonable and a whole lot more natural to find themselves in their own dreams, their lives and their dream lives together, and the swirl of their natural lives with the special meaning of their dreams, and finding all kinds of things inside themselves. I decided that I was going to make myself part of the artwork, and see myself as part of the artwork, and see myself as part of the dream. So you go ahead. Yeah, here's my dream. The dream is that I was in front of the congregation, and I was the Magbiya. I was lifting the Torah, and I lifted the Torah on spindly arms. My arms aren't like what they used to be. And spotted skin. Don't know whether you can see it so easily. Spotted skin. It is in some ways the product of blood thinner. My interaction of blood thinner with almost anything, you know, brush against the door a little bit too hard or whatever. It doesn't have to be something very traumatic, but it does look traumatic. But this inky purple characterized my life and was part of my dream. So I had this dream that I lifted the Torah, and I lifted it enough so that the sleeves of my white robe that I was wearing in my dream came down, and people could read that inky Torah, or see that inky Torah along with the black Torah that I was holding at the end of some trembly hands. And I realized that for me, it was really all one Torah. There was a Torah that was coming out, a Torah that was being spelled out on and in my skin. And I started thinking about my dream friend, Rivka Miriam, who wrote a poem that said, the skin loses its darkened tone, its golden tone, and fades. And what's left is Maaseh Bereshit. What's left is the act of creation. This is could actually be read in my dream. I'm thinking as I lift it up, that this could actually be read as a Torah. Who knows exactly what makes it what it is? I'm not sure. Sometimes I think I affect it. I wear a wristwatch, which I'm not wearing right now, but I wear a wristwatch, and just underneath the wristwatch was a purple spot. The purple spots the Torah appears just where the wristwatch is, you know, it's just the light touch. And who knows what shapes it into a thing or into a story, but there it is. So here's the dream of lifting up the Torah, and of everybody doing what everybody does, which is point with a modest finger to point and say, V'zot HaTorah asher samu Moshe. And I'm thinking in my dream, V'zot HaTorah. And this too is the Torah that God gave to Moses. It's a Torah that is uniquely mine and also not uniquely mine. And everybody's pointing at it and saying, V'zot HaTorah, and this is the Torah, and claiming it, and shouldering in and muscling in and crowding into the dream and being part of the dream. And it is and can be and maybe should be everybody's dream to read the Torah that's left on your arm or that is presented on your arm as other kinds of things and other kinds of concerns fade, as more muscular concerns fade into a life, or if not fade into a life, then are assimilated into or enrich a life that is a life of Torah. So here are all of these people who are, in my mind, I'm now standing in front of the docents' stanchions in the art, and I'm also a part of the art, and people are speaking to me, and the swirl of my regular life and my dream life are tracked and charted here and put out here. And everything that I do is dream and part of the real. And everybody is pointing at me as I see myself in this sort of omniscient way in the dream. Everybody is pointing at me and saying, V'zot HaTorah. They're standing behind me and to the side of me. And everybody's saying, V'zot HaTorah. This, look at this man. V'zot HaTorah. Here is here's the paradox of the dream, that this is very heavy, big Torah, heavy in every sense, Torah. And I'm carrying it around on arms that are increasingly shaking. And that Torah that everybody needs and that everybody has is being supported by very shaky arms. But that's the way it is, and that's the way it's been constructed, that the Torah is lifted by people who have shaky arms in one way and the next. And I realize that. And in my dream, everybody else realizes that too. V'zot HaTorah. Everyone who's pointing at me is pointing also back at herself or himself. You can't have all of these people crowding in to the space without pointing back at yourself. This is your dream as well as my dream, or it should be, or it could be entered into. So, as a matter of fact, it strikes me that the arm that, the Zerah Netuyah, the mighty arm that splits the Red Sea, that story can't be lifted up and shared, and that with the redemptive quality can't be shared without my shaky, spindly arms or without yours. So never underplay what your shaky, spindly arms can do, because God, as it were, Kivyachol, can't do the redemptive work of sharing the story unless we have our spindly arms extended and our Torah in our hand. And it's our Torah and it's mine, and vizot Torah, vizod, 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 this one and this one and this one, and also this one. Every single one of them is a Torah. And it's all part of the same Torah. Says one Talmudic character, I had a dream and I didn't understand it. And I took it to the dream interpreters of Jerusalem. And 24 dream interpreters interpreted the dream, and every single one of them was right. It is possible somehow for us to slip ourselves into and to be found, to find and to be found, and to also found our activities, as it were, on the fact that we are part of this dream. So the dream theme swirls around in the blues and purples and pinks of my dream. And there I am on the canvas like everything else. And I get to speak out in a different way because, as I say, I'm no longer a docent. I'm now a part of the art. So there's something very official, as it were, or very authentic, as it were. I'm not trying to derive my credentials from somebody who studied this under a microscope or through a telescope or with the fine tools and credentials of a literary scholar. It's not that. There's something way more complicated and also way more available and accessible than that, which is my own experience. And along the way, Rabbi Yehuda Bar Simon caught my attention with a midrash. Should I put it up? Yeah, you can put the midrash up.
You can keep talking.
You can see how formal we're being with this. Yeah, the italicized part of it. Rabbi Yehuda Bar Simon said, Abraham insisted on old age, saying before God, Master of all worlds, when a man and his son enter a place, no one knows which of them to honor. If you would adorn the father with old age, then one would know which one was worthy of respect. Said the Holy One to him, by your life, you're insisting on a good thing, and from you it will begin. From the beginning of the Torah until here, there is no mention of age. But to Abraham, he gave zikna, age. Now Abraham witnessed the following verse. Now Abraham grew old, zaken, getting on in days. An extraordinary conversation to interpolate. Why interpolate it here? Why set it here? What's the drama of setting it right here? Malila, do you have something to say about any of that?
And for those who don't know, is Ki Mitzion Tetzei Torah is joining us from it is already evening, a dear friend and teacher. Go ahead, Malila. I'll be quiet now.
First of all, Steve, I wanted to say that your dream is so inspiring. I mean, sorry that I lost my voice, but my love is totally here. But I was thinking that your arms with the whole Torah, you know, your personal, the human Torah inscribed on them, is also held up because there's a very strong spirit. And I would even say it's mostly love. And that's why, you know, we can point at that and say, yes, it is. V'zot Torah. And it's not in the arms are also being held up like Moshe standing, in the battle with Amalek. It's being held up by love, I think, and by your spirits. So I'm happy to be in your dream. And I want to say about Avraham Zaken Baba Yamim. Steve and I taught this together in all kinds of ways, the different midrashim on Avraham Zaken Baba Yamim. So I would first want to hear you speaking about what is the idea that old age can be a gift, can be a gift, can be a gift of coming into our days. What does that mean? What does that mean for you? So I'm all ears, and my heart is open.
Oh, thank you for all of the necessary, vital, beautiful, open channels that you present. Rabbi Yehuda Bar Simon is a hero of mine because he's raised my consciousness regarding this. The sages, generally speaking, don't have that much to say that's great about aging. But this is, and this is unique. And Rabbi Yehuda Bar Simon takes advantage of saying, well, there's something unique about Abraham growing old, and there's something unique about Isaac growing old, and there's something unique about Jacob growing old. And I'm going to put them all together. And I'm going to use my midrash tools to stitch together these, or to write this Torah. I'm going to use my midrash quills to write to this Torah. Why is it right here in this midrash that Abraham insists of God, you got to do something here? Well, why hadn't God done it? And what had been before? What had been before was of the sameness of a life that was statistically interesting, but bare of detail. If you look at the stories in the Torah before Abraham, you'll find well-documented stories of people who lived a long time and had children, and then lived some more years, and then they died. That was it. And Adam was 930 years old when Seth was born, and then Adam died, says the Torah, and that's the beginning of it. And now these great big aqueducts-like structures that take us. We know the water's flowing, but it's too high for us to see anything. From Adam to Noah, and from Noah to Abraham, we have these bridges that are just so-and-so lived such and such number of years, and then had so-and-so many children, and then lived a few more years, and then died. And that's what we get. That's the quality of life. And here, someone who is some hero, a personal, it makes me cry to think about it, a personal hero of mine who's emerged from the ancient world, whose dream I can enter into and who's entered into my dream, says, no, Abraham stops God at a particular time and says, look, I understand you haven't thought about this, but let me tell you, there would be some real benefit to humanity if we had just some differentiation between generations. And people could look at one another with hope and with hopefulness, or the opposite, say, gee, I don't really want to turn out that way, or I would like to avoid that. But they're moving on in their lives, and they're recognizable because of their, or within their particular frames of reference in their particular lives. And it would be such a benefit. It would be such a benefit for the juniors of the world to be able to look and see their seniors and to recognize that there is something beautiful about them and something strong about them and something that is personally relevant about them, about one to the other. And one chooses a model or another, but it's not that they all look alike. The fantasy of the ancient world before Abraham, before Rabbi Yehuda Bar Simon said, no, here's where we're going to change this now. I insist that we change this. The fantasy is that everybody looks alike. You achieve whatever that means. You achieve a certain status of adulthood, and then you have your children, and you keep on doing what you do, and then you wake up dead one morning. All of a sudden, you're dead under the tree.
So one thing that's in the Midrash is that drives him to say this is we need to know who to honor, right? By the way, there's something very messianic about what you just described. Well, everybody's the same, everybody's equal, right? And Rabbi, he's coming forward and saying, no, yes, everybody's equal, but I need to know who to honor. I need there's somebody who I want to honor. Malila said, that it's love that's holding up these hands. Right? And I think that instinct to say, I want to honor, I want to love someone in particular, and I need to know who, I need to be able to tell who should I give that to? It's not enough in theory.
I need to be able to tell who shall I give that to. It's not enough in theory. Is this the Father or is this the Son? And which one to which one do I pay deference and respect? The Talmud later on would sum this up by saying this was in fact the state of the world, that everybody looked alike, and that all the way till the very end, and that people did have this question of who shall I honor? And that was a primary driver. That was a primary question of human beings. Who shall I honor? And it was all locked up and could not be unlocked because, frankly, who hadn't thought about it? Obviously, human beings had thought about it. But God hadn't thought about it, which is a beautiful part of the Midrash, I think. It's a gorgeous part of the Midrash and an important part and a driving part for me.
Well, and the irony is, by the way, God comes along and says, honor your father and mother.
That's right. But maybe doesn't figure that out till after Abraham, if you want to follow the linear story.
But if he said, honor your father and mother, right?
So
the rabbi comes along and said, I don't know how to do that because I can't figure out who's who.
Right. That's the problem. That's a problem. So God hadn't figured it out. God hadn't considered it. Abraham insisted that Abraham forces a confrontation right here where the condition of aging and the word for age butt heads. This is the first time that the word zaken is used, Avraham zaken. Everybody else is aging or they're getting old anyway, and we're not seeing them, but we know the statistical record and so on and so forth. And the world is moving ahead, but with this strange flow to it. And the Midrash says, or I should say, Rabbi Yehuda Bar Simon reads the Torah, reads the sacred dream of Israel as saying, Avraham, but Abraham, bless his soul, but Abraham got old as well as coming along in days. Anybody can come along in days. Oh, I got it, everybody. Not everybody, but if you floss your teeth and if you look both ways before you cross the street and go to the doctor if something hurts, you can get along in days. But can you get old? with the things that being old. Old comes from an old English word that means to nurture. So can you be old under other circumstances? And Rabbi Yehuda Bar Simon says, Avraham Zaken, and I insist that people have the quality of getting old to them, that people change, that they have different physical contours, that the Torah script is written differently, and let others please understand that this is Torah and not to let it go, and that Maaseh Bereshit are in the deeds of creation are inscribed on this Torah and also in this Torah. And this Torah is only supported, this Torah that we point to is only supported by this Torah that's held by the spindly arms. And I should be able to get to look and see who it is that I revere and who it is that I model and whose ways I want to follow as I travel through my life, and not be just like everybody else doing the same thing without any explanation. It's not to say that people who are traveling the aqueducts way above my head, generation after generation, don't have any dramas, but we never hear about them. And Torah is supposed to be instructing us. So we should hear about them. We should bring that down, says Rabbi Yehuda Bar Simon. We should bring it down and make it part of our lives. And it's not. And how does God respond in the Midrash? Well, you no longer have it on your screen, but you can in a minute. If you would adorn the Father with old age, then one would know which one was worthy of respect. Said the Holy One to him, by your life, you are insisting on a good thing, and from you it will begin. And from the beginning of the Torah until here, dear reader, there is no mention of age. Abraham is the first one for whom age is mentioned, and it's because of this particular important volcanic argument or insistence that human beings have the signs of aging about them. But what does it say to you that God hadn't thought about it? What does it say to Rabbi Yehuda Bar Simon? It says to me very clearly, as part of the art and a proud part of the art, that there's some things that don't happen unless human beings insist that they happen. You have to be able to, and it's your obligation to, if you're part of that dream, to make it happen, and to observe it and to honor it. And this is, we share the world with a God who learns, and a God who, well, God hadn't thought about it because God doesn't have experience per se, you know. God doesn't, experience comes out of danger, from danger. Then God is not in danger of anything. And the divine hand never loses its grip. And the outstretched arm never loses its redemptiveness and its effectiveness. But damn it, that outstretched arm needs to be held, its story needs to be held up on spindly arms that are stretched out as far as they can in order to be fully told. And one generation and another generation and one person and another person can do it better or worse or different, and add some style and add some variation. And that's what human beings ought to be able to do. But they don't do it until Abraham says to God, we need zikna. We need age. There has to be something. Avraham zaken. And Abraham got old, as well as moving along in days. That's what we need. And the God who is, for us, thankfully, a God who learns and who is willing to learn, says, you know what? I never thought about that before. But let's start it. And let's start it with you. And so the dream goes on. Vizot HaTorah, Vizot HaTorah, Vizot HaTorah. And this woman who does it this way, Vizot HaTorah, she is a Torah, and she is a Torah, and he is a Torah, and they are a Torah, and we can't be part of that larger vision all crowded around together without pointing ultimately at each other. People who come, the Talmud says, to the place where they've had a dream and they can't understand any part of it, they're supposed to go take their dream and go to the place where the Kohanim are going to make the bracha, Birkat Kohanim, and they're all going to raise their hands up, you know, in that blessing of the high priest, of the priests, and you're supposed to, while they're droning on, you're supposed to say, I've had a dream and I don't know whether it's my dream or someone else's, or you're supposed to say, I don't understand the content of my dream. If it's a bad dream, help purge it and make it a good dream, and so on. And when the priests finish their bracha, everybody is supposed to say, Amen, and raise his or her dream up to the level of that Amen and the bracha of the priests. And through the window panes that the priests with their fingers and out into the world.
Yeah.
And that's the way an unresolved dream should get resolved. But everyone's pointing at everybody else's dream, and possibly part of it, everybody else's dream. And that was my dream.
I have a few things. Number one, you have spent a life creating a community where people can come and bring their dreams, and through the love of community and the solidarity of community, have people say Amen, right? And hopefully have those dreams confirmed in a good way. I just want, there's a lot of people on here who are saying Amen to that, I'm guessing. Malila, I want to hear what she say, since she said she was all ears. We can ask her to unmute. And then I have a question for you, if I can interrupt, or I'll just be quiet. You can tell me to just be quiet. I don't think so. Also fun. You can tell me to be quiet. Malila, what are your thoughts, reactions to all this?
Well, I think it's a beautiful reading because it's coming from a place, Steve, that you're already, as you said, you're just part of the artwork. You're creating it. And I think, you know, just hearing your voice as somebody who is, you know, writing it and saying it well, and creating it, I don't know, that's the gift. That's the gift for me. And I was also thinking that in the Midrash, it appears Avraham Tava, demanding. And I'm thinking, wow, it isn't like, God, you know, help me find a way that I'll be different. And he's demanding. And it's just it's so amazing. On the one hand, the Midrash itself, but to hear it in 2021, you know, from you, Like, what is that?
22.
2022, unbelievable. No, to hear that it's vital, that it's alive, that you have the capacity of taking the ancient midrash, but you're just reading your life into it. And suddenly it's like we learn always in midrash that our life is what informs our way of understanding midrash. It's not just that we're so smart that we know how to analyze, but suddenly you're old, you get it. Like, what were they talking about? And that's something amazing. I'm waiting to hear the continuation.
Well, thank you. The fact that we can interweave our lives with our ancestors and make them live within our lives. And that Rabbi Yehuda Bar Simon, please, I can't even say it. I can't even say it deeply enough. Not even my tears can carry it all the way to you. To be part of a tradition that learns how to value and esteem what it means to be a part of somebody else's dream and to have somebody's life be intertwined with yours. Somebody who is long gone and yet proves by the fact that emotions and dreams continue, that he's not gone at all, is extraordinary. And as I say, I started to write this essay a couple of times. I wrote it a couple of times. The second time after our friend Rachel Cowan died. But I lacked a credential that I've always thought in my writing and my reading and scholarship, a credential that was important, to read the pathographies, that is to say, the life stories, the illness narratives, the real stories, not just people who have pretty words and can write in logical steps moving towards something that's theoretical. It's theoretical, it might be strong, but it can also be hollow. And what I wanted to say now is, as reality is a snugger fit, which I like to say. I like to say a snugger fit because people want to know, well, when are you going to die? I don't know. Before you, after you, with you, I don't know. I have this lovely wall of art upstairs in my study. I wish I could walk up the steps and show you all this artwork, but maybe I'll send you a picture of it. In any event, if I do that, you'll see a picture that was taken by Daniel's uncle, a picture that I've always loved. And I asked Daniel for a copy of it, and he said, sure. And he took it off of his wall and gave it to me so that I could take it apart and have it copied and then return it to him. And I took it to somebody to make that happen. And I found out that this was more complicated because it was not mounted well, and it needed some restorative work in order to protect it properly. And anyway, I start getting dollars and dollars into this thing that I thought is going to cost me $5.50 to get a copy of it. But I get myself into this thing, and I have this. I still want this piece, and it's on. I put it on my wall, and Daniel's uncle Michael died several weeks later. He died several weeks later in his sleep. And it made me consider, well, how would you prefer if you could choose it? And I prefer where I am now. I prefer being able to go through these processes. I prefer to be able to walk a little bit with Rabbi Yehuda Bar Simon and to learn from him. And let me say that there's probably some speculation about whether Rabbi Yehuda Bar Simon is really his name, or whether that's really the sage in question, or what. I don't care. In terms of scholarship and getting a grade on a paper, I would care, but
So I want to take a hold on. I want to take a moment just for everybody to have a moment with this face. Okay. This is a face of someone we love and who just, heard, oh, I'd like for this to happen. And then magically she made it happen. And she's been doing a lot of making that happen. Yeah, you got it. But this face over there, now move the picture because I want to see Cindy for a second. She's been doing a lot of making that happen. Whoa, and now I'm messing it up. But that magic doesn't just happen. It comes from strength and from love. And sometimes hands that quiver too. So thank you for making that happen. Now you can all hold this up. Okay, you say what you were going to say.
That's Uncle Michael's photograph. And I loved it. I loved it because of the lines, and I loved it because of the shade and the black and the white and the balance and the openness and the curiosity that it has spawned in me of what's behind the arched window, which opens out into what? And that curiosity has pointed me right back into the dream, the curiosity of what happens next and what happens.
It's also a door-like image, which has always been something that's been special for you.
Mm-hmm.
This sort of opening to whatever.
And for those who are curious, my uncle of blessed memory took it at a mosque in Akko, in the north of Israel, between Haifa and the north of Israel and the top of Israel.
Yeah. So that,
so you were saying if you had to choose,
if I had to choose, I would choose where I am. I would choose where I am right now, because I love being a part of the journey of Rabbi Yehuda Bar Simon. And I love the fact that he's part of my journey, as well as other heroes. And the truth is, I feel really good. 2.5 years of chemotherapy, and then the chemotherapy not really being washed out, so to speak. It's not helping anymore. But there are other things that are helping. The solidarity of community, and Rabbi Yehuda Bar Simon and people who say V'zot Torah, and are pointing. Ultimately, they're pointing in some ways at me, and also through me at the Torah that I am holding. And they are you. They are my friends. They are my deep, close friends. They are members of my family who say, oh, we get it. V'zot HaTorah. I wonder what mine, can I start to see, can I see my own Torah? Can I start to see it emerging in a certain way in my own flesh or through my own actions? And that's that's exactly what I want, the solidarity of that kind of travel. And I enjoy it too much, and I learn too much from it. And I want to say that we're going to come to a close because it's time for that. But there are two more parts of this sort of dreamlike presentation where I only dreamed. I try never to conjugate that. The part of the Torah on the arms, the Torah of the Torah of the Torah, the Torah that holds the Torah. But you know what? Rabbi Yehuda Bar Simon is more wide-ranging than I am. And Rabbi Yehuda Bar Simon says that Isaac has his own confrontation and Jacob has his own confrontation with God. And just to preview it a little bit, Isaac says to God, you know, it would be a really good thing if we had some yisurin, if we had some afflictions, because then the attribute of justice wouldn't be so taught against us. And God says, what a great idea. I never thought about it, but let's do it, and we'll start it with you. And then along comes Jacob, who says, you know, it would also be a really good idea if we had some final illness, if there was some trajectory that would ground us, that would help us to bring to a close, or allow us to bring to a close, or at least to seed the dream into something else, into someone else, or allow someone else to be part of our dream. That would be really a great thing, and we don't have it. And God said, well, damn it, what a great idea. And it'll start with you. And it starts with him because the servants of Jacob go to Joseph and they say, Vehine avicha chole, your father is sick. And it's the first time that the word chole is used. So with Abraham, it's old is the first time that that's used. And with Isaac, it's constraints like vatichena einav, his eyes got weak, is the first time that such a thing, a flaw, such a weakness is mentioned in the Torah. And then the next time it is about sickness. What a wonderful thing about a Torah that has a small vocabulary to begin with. And now we're only, several dozen chapters into only 49 chapters, 7 chapters into the Torah, where we get to the Yaakov, is sick part of it. And you still at that point have the fantasy of control, the control of the language. I remember every word that was used and how it was used and under what circumstances it was used. And it's true, you really do. It's like a children's story or some other thing that's written in such a simple, open way that you, in terms of its words, that you don't have that many to count. You just don't. You can know the whole thing. You can know the whole story. So there are these 3 things. And in each case, I am proud and happy to say that God responds by saying, Jesus Christ, I never thought about that before. I never thought about that before. What a cool thing. I'm going to think of, let's not even think about it. Let's just start it. The grand human experiment that was your idea, Abraham, and your idea, Isaac, and your idea, Jacob. And without you, human beings, playing a part in it, being a factor in it, this wouldn't have happened. You'll still be water flowing over the aqueduct without details, just statistics. But you have sculpted us into the kind of human, or sculpted you into the kind of human and me into the kind of God who responds to the human being. And we'll do this 2 more times and be able to hear more about Isaac's objection and what about Batich Ena. And as I dream about a dream that I might have regarding that, Isaac's eyes got weak or Jacob got sick, you can add your dreams too. Because ultimately, Vizot HaTorah, Vizot, we're all gathered there. We're all dreamers, just like we once were and always have been together. And we're pointing at each other and we're walking in and out of each other's dreams. And there's a kind of solidarity, a dream solidarity there that allows us to learn and to continue and to have and to have wakeful dreams as well as sleeping dreams, and to pull from one of those worlds of dreaming into the next for our benefit, and with the help of a God who agrees that this is something that human beings are proving for themselves that they need. And so we'll maybe bring it to a halt, unless you have.
So
I would love to say something.
So Melila, I'm going to have you say something. I want to say something, and then I want to have us do something. Okay.
Okay.
For now, you go ahead, Melila.
I want to say, Steve, that I'm sitting in Jerusalem and it's pouring outside and my tears are flowing. I think just from receiving the light of your Torah, because I feel there's something so special about Torah, you know, in this part of the river that you're in, that's gonna flow into the great ocean. And there's something so beautiful about it's all together, it's life and it's dream in the Torah. And I want to say something that you haven't spoken about much, but I want to say something about poetry and your love of poetry and your love of translation of poetry and your ability to go into that incredible world that is conjured in poetry. And I feel that's why you can go into this midrash. You can go into this midrash because you're not looking at it like a philologist. You're looking at it like a poet. And it's just so wonderful to receive it. And one more thing that is so astonishing for me, that this midrash is the exact opposite in the story of the Buddha, right? That when young Buddha leaves the cloistered walls of his of the palace city, this is what he encounters. He encounters a sick man, he encounters an old man, and he encounters a dead man. And it just puts him into total disarray, he's confounded and shocked. And then he starts thinking about attachment, detachment, and meditation. And it's so fascinating that in our tradition, or in Yehuda Rabbi Simon's image, it's the exact opposite. It's actually gifts that make us human, that we come more into our humanity in everything that you've said, in these suffering and in the illness and in the aging. And I just want to say what a gift that we have Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Simon's insight, and then have you, Steve, weave yourself into his insight, and that we can receive it as Vizot Torah.
Thank you.
So I want to weave one more word into this, which is courage. I think, and we've talked about this a little bit, but and you don't think of it as courage, But there are a lot of people who, when given the choice between my Uncle Michael and dying quickly in the sleep and more time, wouldn't necessarily make that choice. And in the end, it's not a choice given to us. But to make the choice and to say, I cherish each moment of this, and I want the time, and I want to read my life into these stories, is a sense of courage. It's a sense of access to a very divine light that is in the world and that we're all sort of basking in right now. And I'm grateful for so many things, but I'm also, and I'm grateful for the Torah of courage to not be afraid, but to live with each moment with a sense of awe and wonder. And poetry, right? Like not just, by the way, Malila, not just like living with it, but sheer poetry also means song, right? And I feel like this is just a song, right? It's just a song. So what I want to do as a closing is you and I love to sing with you. And the other night I was here for Shabbat dinner, and I ended up benching quickly and scooting home because I was sitting on my son. And as I was walking away, I realized that I really, really wanted to sing the end of Birkat Hamazon with you, because we've done that a number of times before. So I want to do that now, because I'll be selfish and just take that moment. And I also want to, there's 97 people. And by the way, I'm sorry, we're doing the best that we can. The Zoom room, we realized into this, only had spaces for 100 connections. So like, if you're on, just know that you like, it wasn't as expensive as a ticket to Coach K's, to the Duke game, but like, you got a prize spot. We've recorded this and we're gonna share it out. And when we do this a second and a third time, we'll get a Zoom room that has 500 people, that has 500 connections, so that everybody can get in. But what I want to do is, while we sing, invite people to put into the chat reflections. Add your thoughts, add your meditations, add your comments of Torah to the Torah that you've heard. And we will somehow take these, and I'll figure out a way to save the chat, and then we'll print it out, and you'll have that to read through between now and the next class. Okay, so I'm just gonna, and everybody, so take a moment while we sing, take a moment to collect yourself and your thoughts and your ideas and your reflections and your love. And while we sing, you can go ahead and add that to the chat, after which we'll close the room and finish up for today. Sound okay?
It does sound okay. I wonder whether, I do wonder about the quality of my voice, just sometime somehow thinking that changes too, just like the quality of one's skin changes, and the way in which your Zeta's partially shaved chin still retains all of the love and strength and wisdom that it did before. I wonder, and I'm just wondering whether little scotch would make a difference to.
See,
to
now
my
that you've said a little scotch, either Sabina or Eddie Hamburg, who's here, somebody right now is running to the kitchen and saying,
I know, it was kind of cute.
Get 2 ice cubes, 1 for each, because I want some scotch too, right? And,
Yeah.
But the quivering voice is also, as you taught us, the quivering arms and the scratchy voice and everything.
That's
You
true.
can have a little coffee.
That's true.
It's all part of the Torah. You want any more of that?
No, thanks.
No. Okay.
But
Okay.
I am wondering what it will be like. I am hoping.
I didn't get the ice though.
No
Okay.
problem. We'll go without ice. Chasdei Hashem. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. This is for Zoom. Yeah, this is like makeup, for the throat. But when
By the way, if anybody else has scotch in the house, feel free to go get some. I mean, you can join us in a little time. I'm just saying, right?
when I'm invited, to daven shacharit next, whenever that is, I'm anxious to hear what my voice sounds like in this more thready and shaking way than it used to. So more surprises. There will be more surprises.
So let me just say, right? Maybe it may be a late shacharit these days because mornings take a little bit longer, but we can make a date for that, right? Like let's get a Zoom minion together and daven a little shacharit,
Okay.
and we'll see how that goes.
Right.
Okay. So first,
L'chaim
the bracha.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol yabid varo.
Amen.
For all dreamers who dream their own dreams and other people's dreams and bring their own dreams back to the sacred dream and dream it in the lives and through the characters who were the forest of our ancestors from which they emerged.
Okay, be quiet and drink some scotch now, okay?
Thank you. It's so unusual for him to be telling me to be quiet. He who has not an unspoken thought.
Oh my.
It's brutal. It's brutal. This is friendship right there. There it is. There it is. Shall we sing?
We can.
Okay. Nahayiti gam zakanti velo raiti tzadik nezar velo raiti tzadik nezar v'zaro mevakesh lachem Adonai oz le'amu yitein Adonai oz le'amu yitein Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Hai lai lai, hai lai lai,
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. We'll do it again. We'll do it
Yes.
more.
Thank you.
I think it'll say.
Thank you. Sending lots of love.
Thank you, Rabbi Sager.
Thank you.
We miss you.
That was Giselle.
There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you, Rabbi.
Shavua Tov.
What's all-
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love from your home
Thank
in
you.
Charleston.
Thanks, Steve. Yasha Koach.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Marty.
I could hit head. Yeah, I think it'll save it.
See you again.
There's Mike and Jackie. Hi, Mike and Jackie.
And Michaela and Hunter.
Rabbi
And
Gerber, I
Yeah.
saved the chat as well. So if there's more that come in, you might need to grab those, but I've got, well, we have some more.
Okay.
We have a half hour.
Jackie wanted us to tell you that we are making Hamantaschen.
Excellent.
A session.
Tiskula mitzvahs. Tiskula-
Yes.
And I made hamantaschen this morning using Pearl's recipe. So
Ah.
Amazing.
love you guys.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna end
Rabbi Sager.
Yasha
you.
Thank you.